Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a Kessor's family production. In this episode, we discuss mental health, the popularity of soccer, and Big Ten sports. Our guest today is Derek Bylsma. Derek is the Executive Director of Millennium Counseling Center. He resides in Chicago, Illinois. Derek is a licensed clinical professional counselor and a nationally board-certified counselor. Derek specializes in recovery-related work, mental health disorders, and issues unique to athletic performance. He's enthusiastic about leading the sports division at his group as it marries two of his lifelong passions, helping others and athletics. You'll hear Derek and I discuss these 5 topics: Derek's passion in sports and helping others, mental health in sports, coaching high school soccer, connecting with those that need help, and USA Soccer. And then get ready for a wave of rapid-fire questions. All right, let's bring in Derek. Derek, welcome to the Entrepreneur Perspectives podcast. It's great to have you today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to chatting about these things.
Yeah, so you were a Big Ten soccer player. Tell us your fondest memory of those times.
I played at University of Wisconsin in Madison, and I think my best memory is my senior year. We got ranked as high as 5th in the country, won the Big Ten title, and also beat Indiana, who has been a kind of perennial power. And so it was a season of firsts for Wisconsin, and then a few years later they went on to win the national championship, and we were kind of a group that helped get that started. And so it was we went to the final 16 in the NCAA tournament, and so it was a very exciting year and something I will always remember and cherish.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I could imagine, like you talked about, like you helped build that program up to where it became, and then they won the national championship. I imagine when they won the national championship a few years later, like that was something you felt you were a big part of.
Well, I mean, I think everybody who came before that year, right? I think it's like, a program gets built over time. And I think there were people there well before me who really did a good job of getting the program to be, bigger and with more talent. And the thing about, any sport is that the better you do, the better the players that come in. And so I think that, for us, or as we reached the NCAA tournament and won the Big Ten and things like that, it just opened up recruiting a little bit to get some of the players that may not have been interested in there before. So I think for years the program was being built up to that championship, and then I think in the short run there were certain things that happened that certainly helped that to a few years later to win the championship.
Yeah, the loyalty that goes into college sports and all levels, I think, is awesome because, like you're saying, you became before something, and then you helped build something up, and most of these college programs, you see, like even at a football game, you'll see players that came before that didn't win a national championship, and they're sitting there right on the sidelines at the college football playoff, let's say, and they're ready to go. Like they're ready to jump in and play if they could, but they're cheerleading on the sidelines almost, and I think that's a really cool part of what you have in college sports. I think it's one of the closest things for us. Speaking across the world, as far as that compares with soccer worldwide, if that makes sense. You watch a European soccer game and the energy that those stadiums have, and the fun that the people are having in those stadiums is, I think, college football becomes something that's so close to it. So brings it in, it kind of a little bit different, but it brings it into the whole soccer discussion that, you played soccer. We're going to talk a little bit more about soccer today on this podcast, but, kind of moving on from that, and marrying your two sports and also helping others, marrying your two passions, of your sports and helping others. How did that come to be? How did you decide to say, this is what I want to do? I want to get into these different things that I love doing on a daily basis. I want to put these two together and make a business out of it.
Sure. I think that, starting as a young kid, I've always loved sports. And so sports, the athletics part of it was pretty easy. My mom was a psychotherapist in private practice. My dad was a sociology professor, but originally I went into something completely different. And this is actually a second career. I went back years ago and got my master's so I could, be here in the clinical mental health counseling world. And so I think that the one thing that I did know is that our mind is a really powerful thing and can be a great advantage for athletes if you use it well, and also be a hindrance if you don't know how to use it. And so I think that I had some insight in that, both from playing at the different levels that I did, and then also, on the mental health side, having a really true, strong understanding and having worked with a lot of different people, on the mental health side, it gives you kind of both sides of it, which is really what it takes to be able to help people when it comes to the mental health and athletics mixed together.
Yeah, so you said you had seen this before, so obviously you were aware of it as you were an athlete, and you were kind of mentioning it came easy to you, but then there's other aspects, whether the physical aspect of sports came easy to you, but the mental aspect, when you were younger and you were playing, did that part come easy to you as well?
Well, it's interesting. I actually think that from a standpoint of me as an athlete, I think I was better on the psychological side. I don't think I was like truly gifted as an athlete, and I knew that there was people who did certainly had better skills than I did and were set up to do better. I think the thing where I did really well is I learned about the psychological side of the game. I learned about the mental side of the game, and I learned how you can use that to gain an advantage, both from a competitive standpoint and from a standpoint of just feeling good about yourself and feeling good about the team. And so that was an area that I think I attached to. And then because of that, again, I feel like there's some of that I can share and help other people with, because if you understand that, and the thing is I want to help the folks who have both sides, who are great athletes and who can use the mental health aspect of it. And if you can do that, then you can be incredible.
Yeah, well, it makes a lot of sense then that you would marry those two. I mean, that's what we talk about on this podcast a lot, is there's common themes among the entrepreneurs that we're having conversations with. And it starts at a young age and it develops, and maybe you find that passion later. Maybe it's your second career, as you found for yourself. But when you put those two things together, I think it's that those passions that you have, they just become something that you wake up every morning. I imagine, tell me if I'm wrong, and you're just excited to get after it. Like, this is something that you just look forward to, and maybe it doesn't happen every single day, but you get a little bit better every single day. Is that what you're finding now that you're in the second career and have married these two passions?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, actually, the reason why I originally switched over to the mental health side as opposed to recruiting is that I had spent some time on a volunteer basis working with people in the recovery community and some other areas, and my wife really noticed that this was what I was truly passionate about, and I would wake up every day and I'd look forward to that side of my life, not so much the business that I was running, but to the part of where I was working on a volunteer basis and helping those. And I think that passion has been there and was really the driver, along with the support of my wife, to move over to this field. And I think that since then, I mean, I truly believe you have to love what you do if you want to be great at it. And my belief, even when I was in the recruiting world, was that, you have to find a position and a career that you're going to be passionate about and you're going to love. And I think that you're exactly right. I wake up every day. I look forward to, the different people that I'm going to work with that day and how we might be able to kind of go about this. It's like a big puzzle, and you help them kind of solve that puzzle, and then, their life gets better, and or they perform better, or they have less stress, or whatever the answer is for that particular person.
Sure. So like the business becomes the byproduct of the thing that you enjoy doing. And so whether that's money or growth of a company, all those different things, they're all very important, right? We need money to live, and we do these things because we have to make money. There's no doubt about it. And that's why we're in business a lot of ways. But what you're doing is you're just enjoying what you do every day. And the business, like I said before, becomes the byproduct of you going out there and helping other people. And you obviously saw that, right? You've seen that all the time. You've seen that with yourself, that you realize that if you could have that mental edge on the field, that's going to help you out. So you see that it would help other athletes out as well. And as being a part of a team and watching sports and working with athletes, I imagine, and we see it, right? You see it whether with a kicker in football or a goalie in soccer or a golfer, right? Mental health in many ways, and we're talking about maybe on the field type of stuff, but there's things happening off the field as well. How much do you see mental health affecting athletes out there?
Yeah, I think this is a really big piece of it. I think that people, when they think of kind of the mental health aspect in athletics, they think about higher performance, and they think about people, being able to perform at peak levels and things like that. But there's a whole nother side to it, and that's that being an athlete or being any kind of performer, there's added pressure, there's added stress, and there's a level of continued, chance to slide into depression and some other areas like that. They did a recent study, and I think it was 85% of all college athletic trainers said that they saw anxiety disorder within their athletes. So it was, almost 100% of the, the trainers said that they see it on a daily basis with the folks they are working with. And so I think that the thing about your mind is it's such a powerful thing. And if you know how to use it in the right way, then it can be so helpful. But if you're somebody who's suffering from, one of these other things, depression or anxiety or bipolar, and you need to kind of learn to work your way through that to just try to be happy on a day-to-day basis or content, then that's also a big side of it. And so I think that there's really two sides of it, and you kind of have to get an idea for where the folks are, and then you can kind of help them, set some goals and try to figure out where they can get to based on where they already are.
And how does that start when you're working with an athlete to have these types of conversations with them? Are they coming to you? Are you going to them? Are you getting referred by someone else in the business, maybe a coach or family member? How does that work?
Sure. Yeah, it's both. I mean, I think that, the one thing is that you try to make sure people know you're out there, and you try to, do anything you can to let people know about it. So we work with a lot of schools and clubs, club soccer, club volleyball, club softball. And again, there's kind of two ways. One of the ways we work is we'll work with a team as a whole, and we'll help them do a lot of things, team building and goal setting and, kind of those types of things that are always good for teams. And then the second part is we'll maybe work with individuals. And usually when we're working with an individual, I'd say probably 75% of the time it's on the side of trying to help them through some struggles, and probably 25% of the time it's to help them, kind of try to achieve at a higher level. The other thing is that when people first come in, I think they many times think they're coming in for one reason, and then once you dig a little bit deeper and find out a little bit more about what's going on, you find out that they may come in to try to be a better performer, but then you find out that, stress or anxiety is causing a huge problem in their life, and it's kind of affecting all areas of their life. So if we can help them with that, then they're just naturally going to be, happier and perform better and do better in their athletics.
Okay. And so what ages are you starting at?
Yeah, so we go very young. I mean, we'll start as young as like 6 or 7. But when you're talking about 6 or 7-year-olds, it's a very different conversation. I'd say most of our clients are at least in high school, but there are some smaller folks who, and generally the smaller folks probably have some sort of mental health diagnosis. They've got anxiety or depression, and they've been diagnosed at an early age, and parents have noticed that there's something going on with them. And so we're trying to help them through that and almost use athletics as a way to help them get through that. It's the thing that they love. It's what they enjoy doing. And so we're kind of, using the sports as a way to help them through maybe one of these different diagnoses that they're working with. As far as the older kids, we'll get into probably junior high, I'd say age 13, 14 is where it really starts to be beneficial for people, because that's when you're starting to kind of compete at a higher level and really trying to figure out where you can gain advantage, and also trying to make sure that you're handling any of the issues that may come up in your life. Okay.
And what I'm seeing, so I have 3 kids, and I played a lot of sports. I didn't play Division I like yourself, but I did play a lot of sports. My son, my oldest, plays sports. He's 13. He's a soccer goalie. And as you could imagine, being a soccer goalie, there's a ton of pressure. There's a ton of pressure in anybody, and all these kids, I think, just today. So not even talking about my son, but just talking about kids today, coaching youth baseball, for example, and seeing the level of stress that was put on these kids, and the drive to win a Saturday morning game that really doesn't have a lot of meaning, big meaning when it comes to it. And if a kid strikes out and everybody's watching, like I've seen kids walk back to the dugout and they're crying. And like you said, it's not just that they struck out. There's so many other things that are going. There's the parents or relatives talking behind the fence, right? There's so much pressure. So I think it's amazing that here you are, there's someone out there. This isn't just for someone that is, a Division I athlete or a, professional basketball player. This is for people of all ages, really. Once they start playing sports, that someone like yourself is out there that can have these conversations, that can help them out and dig a little bit deeper, because maybe it's not about the bad game that you have. We've all seen that. A goalie goes out there and lets in 4 bad goals in a game, and it's like, that stuff happens. Like, you're going to have a bad day at the office. But what is really going on maybe behind the scenes? And I think that's what you seem to be uncovering quite a bit, more so than just actually what just happened on the field, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit on a lot of really good points about it. And a lot of it has to do with parents and access to information. And, kids now can get more statistics and things like that at a young age. And so there's a lot of comparing going on. And so I think that the thing that you need to learn how to do is balance motivation with satisfaction. And I think that I think people think that satisfaction is a weakness, that if you're actually happy that you did well or you played well in a game or your team did well, then that means that you're just not trying hard enough and you're not, pushing hard enough. And, motivation applying pressure to yourself as a means of motivation, at some point it starts to work against you. And I think that not everybody understands that. They think that, pressure is always the best motivator. And I think helping kids learn how to find out what their motivators are. It's funny, my dad, when I was a kid, I was young, and I've remembered this my whole life, is that my dad told me, there's three types of athletes. And he said, one type, you have to, give them praise all the time. Another type, you have to really get after them. And the other type is you just have to leave them alone. And he said, the great coaches are the ones that figure out which one each player is and treats them differently.
Yeah. And it's not that, the way that you see a lot of coaches that are just blanket, right? Like you're saying that they're just throwing the same exact idea at every single one of the people. And the same thing in business, right? If you have a group of salespeople, not every salesperson is going to respond to their manager, to their boss, to whoever that is that's helping lead the way the same way. So no, I completely understand. So what do we do about it? Like, what do we do? We can't solve it today, but how do we make it better? How do we make youth sports? Because I see it in the amount of pressure. So right now, and just giving an example, my son's on two different soccer teams. So he's on his club team, and then he's on his middle school team. And they're completely different teams with different coaching. And I get it. Like the middle school soccer team is more of a, you have volunteers. So totally understand, nothing against the coach. And then for the club team, it's like these guys are paid to coach. There's 3 coaches out there. He's got a specific goalie coach that's out there helping them. And then he's got specific training that's going on. And then you see the differences between, this is early on in the middle school team, but you see differences in just the attitude of the team. Like the club team, these kids get along, they're so nice, but there's club teams out there where the kids hate each other. And then there's parents that are so involved. And like, I guess what I'm saying and what I'm asking is, how does youth sports get like back to, in a way, like the way it should be? And it's not so much pressure, because this doesn't just impact them on the field, right? This impacts them at school, it impacts them at home, it impacts them with their friends. Like, what do we as a society, or as someone like yourself, what do we do to try to get that better?
Yeah, I think it's culture. I think it's the culture of the family and the culture of the team that you're on. And I think that, as a parent, it's your responsibility to build the culture in your family and to build a house that has acceptance, but also encourages motivation and, is non-judgmental, but is also, trying to teach your kids on how to get better at things. I think people pick one side or the other of that. And then the same thing goes on the coaches. I think that it's really important that, coaches have an understanding of what these kids are, what the pressure they're under. A lot of coaches are older, and, we, like myself, we grew up in a different era. And so I think that things were a little bit different then, and we don't have, unless you try to learn what's going on with these kids, then you can't have an understanding of it, because we didn't have the same thing. I'm in my 40s, and I think that when I was growing up, coaching was a little different. I think now the coaches, what they have to do is be able to learn how to connect with their kids. They have to build trust, and they have to make sure that the kids understand that they're really truly trying to do what's best for the team and not do just what they want to do as a coach. And so I think it's kind of that balance between both in the house and with the team. I think it's the balance of adults' responsibility to try to make this as something that for what it really is, and that's to enjoy life, to be, help you be healthier. Every one out of every however many kids will go on and play in college, and then the smaller level will play in professionally. But the reality is that most of these kids are just playing at that level or one level higher maybe after that. And that the biggest thing you're doing at this point is you're helping them learn about life. And if we understand that as coaches and parents and don't put the game in front of the lesson, then I think we'd be better off.
Absolutely. No, I think that's very well said. We talk about adversity a lot. There's a lot of things that are put in your way. It's not supposed to be easy every day. And this adversity that you're dealing with, say on the soccer field or football field or tennis courts, whatever that is, I feel like these obstacles are put in your way for a reason, and you have to overcome them. And when you're older, it's not about, well, then you're going to see that when you're playing in the championship. Yeah, perhaps, like you said, like there's a chance that could happen. Maybe it could, but it could happen just in your business. It could could happen in school. It could happen with your friends, and you have to be able to deal with that adversity. And so you're just going through these lessons. And if you can see it as such, then it doesn't seem as such a big obstacle because you're just learning along the way, just like you're learning and I'm learning, right? I think that's a big part of it. And I don't know if you would agree that, we are going to deal with adversity because so many people have been, put in a situation to where it was always going their way, and then all of a sudden it doesn't go their way, and then it kind of breaks down, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that we don't really know how to fail very well. I think that's one thing that's changed over the years is as parents, we don't want our kids to be hurt or to fail or to, lose or feel bad. And I think that what we've lost a little bit is how do you attack an obstacle without it being, just a failure? And I think that, that's one of the things that we have to learn how to do better with is that understand exactly like what you said. These are all lessons, they're opportunities, these challenges that we come across it's an important part of what we're learning with athletics and just in life. And if you try to protect your kid from ever feeling that, then they're not going to know how to deal with it when they get older. And as a coach, if the only feedback you ever give is all negative towards a team whenever they just don't win, then you have the exact same thing. They kind of feel like negativity comes with losing all the time, and the only way they get positivity is by winning. And, I think that it should be more geared around if you're working hard and you're trying your best and, doing all that. I think people believe that type of attitude means that you can't be a winner. And I don't believe that. I think you can do both. I think you can, do things for the right reason and still win a lot of games. And that's kind of the place that I come from in life.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And I think, like I said before, very well said. And I would also touch on that one other point that you made about it being the parent's responsibility. Because, there's a lot of enabling that goes on there. And when you go to the field and you show up and you kind of look around a little bit and you see kids looking over to the sidelines for parents' approval, or if the parents are kind of making gestures of like you did something wrong, they're already hearing it from the coach. They already got to deal with the teammates. They may have just lost a game for their own team, and then their parents are going to get in their head about it. There's no chance that, I could watch it and be like, there's no way this kid's getting a hit here. There's just too much going on, right? And I think it is, like you said, the parent's responsibility to encourage, and also, like you said, to, things we do fail, and it's the adversity, and can you get through it? So I appreciate you lending, your thoughts on that topic. By no means am I an expert on it, just watching and try the best that we can try as parents or coaches. And, I think everybody needs to understand too that everybody's learning, whether it's a parent, whether it's the coach, whether it's the player. Everybody out there is learning together, and no one has it all figured out. But there's people like you out there that absolutely can help out through that process. So when it comes to, we're talking about, these are big issues, but when it comes to something that is like a bigger issue, that's an addiction, that whether it's from an athlete or just individuals that you deal with, it's hard for people to admit addictions, right? That's a big thing that goes on in this country. How do you go about connecting with people that need your help, but, maybe have that hard time admitting kind of where they're coming from?
Yeah, I think that is really the you said connecting with the folks, and I think that's where it all starts. We have a intensive program in Millennium, which is based almost solely around one-on-one work. There is a small group aspect, but it's an intensive program, and it centers around hours and hours of one-on-one work with somebody who who's an expert in what we do and who you feel like you can connect with. So I think that there's two really big things that you need to do when you first meet with somebody is you need to gain their trust. They have to believe that you know what you're talking about, that you potentially either went through this yourself or have enough experience in it that you really understand what they're going through, and there's not going to be any judgment, and that you're somebody that they can actually follow. A big part of early recovery is faith, and people oftentimes, think that faith has to do with just, a higher power or religion, but faith is really belief in anything that's not you, and in the belief that can help you, as far as how I see it, I guess. And then the second thing is personal connection. You really have to find somebody, and this is what I recommend everybody does when they go and they're going to work with, whether it's a therapist or a coach or, somebody on the sports psychology side, you find somebody that you connect with. You find somebody that you listen to them say something and you're like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about, or this woman is really sharp. She's been through this before, or she understands this. And so you've got to be, there's got to be a personal connection. They have to feel like there's, you're somebody that they can work with and that they, can laugh with and can, go through struggles with and can reach out to you if they need to. And so those are the really big things. I think is there has to be trust. There has to be a personal connection. And then I think you have to understand when there's not that. And when there's not, then you have to try to help the clients find somebody that, does have that with them. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I think that, you people in my field need to make sure that their ego doesn't get in the way and that they say, hey, listen, I'm not the best person for you, but I know who is, and I'm willing to, call up this person and see if I can get you into there because they would do really well with you. And I see that happening, and I like it. And it's something that I really enjoy about this business is that I think people truly do that, which is really difficult to ask people to do in other businesses.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it ties in with, I think, so much in business. We talk about it all the time. You might not have all these same similarities between people, but when we go out and have conversations, it's amazing that the business side of it comes later. It's more of making that connection with the person on a very genuine level. It can't be, it can't be fake. So if you have that, genuine mutual interest in whatever that might be, whether it's sports or hiking or family or food or travel or whatever it is, once you make that connection, there's so much further down the road you can take it, because it's kind of like you're saying, you make a connection with someone on a very way more important topic than anything that we're talking about perhaps, and that allows people on both sides of the fence to open up a little bit, and I would imagine that helps you out. So I find it interesting that so much of communicating nowadays, forever really, is about making real genuine connections with people, and that's all you're doing. You just happen to be taking it further and helping people overcome addictions or struggles, or get out of their own head a little bit. So and you're doing this too for your high school soccer team, which I imagine is an incredible thrill for you to be working in the sport that you love so much and directly with kids.
Yeah, I do. I love coaching. It's kind of a funny story. I lived in the neighborhood where the school is that I coach, which is Jones College Prep in Chicago. And they asked me, they knew about my playing background, and they asked me if I would help them out for 1 year. The program was kind of a mess, and asked if I would just come in and do it for 1 year. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll do it for 1 year. And that was 9 years ago, I think. And and every year it's something I look forward to, and I come back and do it again. And I think that this is something that there's so many reasons that I like it. I mean, part of it is my love of the game and being able to share that, and my love of competition and being able to share that. But a lot of it goes back to kind of what we talked about a little bit before, is that, I think that I look back at my own life and I see how much athletics taught me. I see how big of a part it is in my day-to-day life, and whether it's about teamwork or learning how to fail, or learning how to stay motivated, or any of the things that we've kind of discussed, those are all things that you can learn from athletics and other things, and other hobbies and things. But I learned it through athletics, and I think that if you can help these younger kids, I teach, I coach the girls team in a high school, and so I've got our program has 90 or 100 kids between the ages of 9th grade and 12th grade. And that's a big time. And I think especially with young women, it's very difficult to be a young woman these days. And so there's a lot going on there. And I think that, yes, the soccer is important, and yes, we try to compete and we do well. I mean, we went to the city championship last year, and the program has come a long way. But I think that the more important thing is that what we need to do is we need to help these kids learn how to live life. We need to help them learn how to take on different things. And, the kids tease me, but I'll talk about gratitude quite a bit, and kind of understanding where you are and being able to kind of be grateful for being out here with your friends and practicing on a 75-degree day, in downtown Chicago. And I think that those are the kind of things that we really try to pass along, and integrity and trust and competitiveness and all those things that you kind of want to help the kids learn, that are big, important parts of life. But high school soccer or any high school sport or younger sport can be a great vehicle for that, as long as I think that the people who are in charge, understand that that's truly the main goal, as opposed to just trying to win a championship.
Sure. Well, I would say that Jones College Prep's lucky to have you. I mean, you're someone with your background, both on the field and off the field, is an incredible combination for a coach. And I could see it too, where they would laugh at you when you talk about the gratitude. But I'll tell you what, like that stuff sticks. Like maybe you have to hear it for a while, and maybe it won't hit them until they're like 30 or 40 or 50 years old. But that stuff is memorable. You remember the good mentors in your life, the good coaches that you had in your life, and you remember the bad ones too, right? And the people that, sometimes that can be very motivating. But for you to be doing this with young women at the high school in the large program and kind of taking it to where you have with the success that you're having at the school, and to where you're going to be taking it from here, I think is pretty remarkable. And with that being said, as far as like soccer in this country is concerned, we watch a lot of European soccer, and I think it's a lot of fun. We touched on it before. It's just an amazing sport, and the energy that's involved with it. And U.S. soccer, I think, has really come a long way. And then you turn around and look, and like the U.S. soccer team, the men's soccer team we're talking about, doesn't make the World Cup. The women's soccer team is actually is very dominating out there. What do you see as the future of soccer in the U.S.?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had overall a bit of a failure on the men's side. I think the women's side is a good is a good roadmap for us to look at. The women have continuously developed players and competed at a high level and has a lot of respect around the world. And I think on the men's side, we have switched directions so many times. We've gone, switch coaches, and we want this type of coach, we want this type of coach, we want this type of president or that type of president. And I think that there's not kind of a uniform overall goal of who we want to be as a country when it comes to soccer. Missing the World Cup was a huge disappointment. I was even thinking about going to Russia, which I'm not anymore, but it was a huge disappointment for a lot of people that follow soccer. But I ultimately think that it could be the best thing that could happen, because we needed to change some things, and we needed some things to get, shaken up a bit. And I think that we would have continued to be, the 25th best program in the world, if that. And there was really no reason to change that, because people bought tickets and they followed the team, and in general, except for the real soccer aficionados, people were pretty happy. But I think that what this did is made people realize, wait a minute, we should be better than this. We should be doing better than this. And particularly since we have such a great youth participation. I mean, I think it's the number one sport for girls under 18. I think it's the number 2 sport for boys under 18. I mean, we've got more kids playing than we ever have before. And so I think that, kind of making sure that we're developing those kids at all levels and making sure that we're getting them the best coaching. And again, not just the best coaching from a standpoint of just to be the best players, but to be best coaching to really understand, kind of teamwork. And I think that's one of the things you see with the U.S. team is they don't play as a team. They seem to be on a different page, and that happens a lot. And when you watch the women's team, it looks like it's a beautifully orchestrated, kind of play that's all been set up beforehand, and everybody now is just playing it out how it's supposed to go. And I think that's the difference between the two. And I think the future's good, but I do think that we need to make sure that we develop it more, and we need the right leadership, and hopefully we have that now.
Yeah, I mean, and you see it, like I mentioned before, in the club soccer that my son plays in, just showing up to the fields, the amount of kids that are there, the amount of it's not just the amount of kids, the amount of coaches. And what I really like about it is the amount of practice time that goes into it. I was always kind of like weirded out by, we're playing way more games than we are practices. And if you talk about, go to baseball, for example, how many at-bats do you actually get in a game? 3, 4, 5 if you're really lucky and you're just scoring a lot of runs. And then other times you're sitting on the bench, and maybe if you're playing the field, you get a couple of balls hit to you. It's a different sport, but same thing in soccer. Like if you're playing goalie and you're in a soccer and your team's winning the game, chances are you're not getting a lot of shots and a lot of work back at you. So the hour that you could spend with a goalie coach, if they have one, is going to take you a lot further. And like you're saying, developing the players. I mean, you start reading about the men's soccer team and the development process that they have. Even if they're not even succeeding, like you see how many goalies are a part of that process and how many are training. Like who's going to become the next Tim Howard, right? And I think that's something that they have to continue doing, but do it even in a better way. And I also like what you said about sometimes that loss is your biggest win. We actually wrote an article about that on our Sportsepreneur platform. And it stinks to lose, right? I think nobody wants to lose, but sometimes you lose, and it's what allows you to win. I mean, I'm not going to speak my own book here, but I'm a big Ohio State fan. I think you're a Michigan fan. But like when Ohio State won the championship in 2014, a big reason why, obviously talent has a lot to do with it and the culture has a lot to do with it, but it's because they lost the year before is what got them to win it in 2014, right? There was so much that went wrong in 2013 that should have gone right, that didn't, that made them go back and say, we're going to get this thing right. So the loss became their greatest win and allowed them to win the championship. That's just one example where that happens over and over again, right? Clemson loses to Alabama. The next year they come back and beat them. The flip happens. And soccer, it happens quite a bit in all sports. So I think, like you said, maybe this is the right thing. But eventually they do have to get there because like kids watch this and they want to watch it, and that's going to help. Next time I show up to the soccer fields, there'll be even more kids there. There'll be a greater pool of players. Kids are going to say, you know what? I don't want to play football. I want to play soccer. I don't want to play basketball. I want to play soccer. So if more of the better athletes start going and picking that sport, that'll be great. But they need the presence somewhere. And, Team USA, the men's soccer team would be a great thing. Although I'd say the women's, I've been very into the women's soccer team and watching them. I agree with you. Like, that's a lot of fun for me to watch that sport. They play incredibly well together. A lot of different personalities that are out there. It's very interesting, and I could see why it'd be the number one girl sport at this time in our country. So a lot of good things ahead, hopefully, like you said.
Yeah.
And, do the kids on your team, because it's not as big in the United States to watch a soccer game, like football, obviously in your town, Chicago Bears, and college football is huge. Do they watch soccer, MLS or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think it depends on each individual. I think there's some of the kids are really, they want to become students of the game and they really want to learn how to play, and so they'll watch. And there's now bigger exposure to the EPL and different ways to really see good soccer out there. And where back in the day we didn't have that, it was really tough to see a game. You'd have to find some old VCR tape and plug it in somewhere. But these days it's out there, right? You can go and find these things. You can watch it live. And so I think that there's kind of a divide among kids. I think that some of the kids are really into it and really understand players and like to watch it. But some of the kids aren't. And realistically, I think that's okay. I think that, at that age, there's such a specialization going on that we have in sports that, kids are asked to pick what sport they're going to play for the rest of their career when they're 9 years old now. And so then when you do that, yes, it creates better athletes and it creates more specialized athletes in those specific areas. But, I think that one of the things that you see, and this is one of the things we work on with people, is that you see burnout. You see that these kids, like, I remember we would play, I'd play basketball, baseball, and soccer year round. And I think those other sports that I played were really helpful for me because it kind of gave me a break from soccer and allowed me to go do something different. I think it was good for me athletically and psychologically. But I think that now these kids are asked to get specialized, at such a young age that and then they're said, if you really want to be good, you have to watch it every day. And if you really want to be good, you have to know what's going on with the national team. And I think that, that is, again, it kind of goes back to what we started talking about in the beginning. I think it's just an added pressure that is unnecessary. I think if they want to watch it, great. If they don't want to watch it, that's fine too. If they'd rather go watch a basketball game, I think we can learn from, lots of different things. And if they want to go see the opera, I think that's great. There's a lot of different ways we can learn about being, a better person and a better athlete in life. And I think that not just watching your sport is the only way to do it, although that is helpful.
Yeah. And I say it in the sense of like just awareness around the sport of like, this is a sport that you can play in this country. It's not just a European sport. But I'm glad you said that word specialization, because I agree with you. I mean, like you start watching kids and all they do 24/7 every single day, they're playing basketball, they're playing soccer, they're playing football. And and if they play basketball, they've never played football and they don't know how to throw a football, they don't know how to throw a baseball, they can't kick a soccer ball. And they're, like you said, there's studies that show the amount of injuries that these kids have. I mean, women's soccer, being the number one sport, actually because of that becomes a problem because all they do is play soccer and they get these same injuries. And they talk about the head injuries that you can get and the different leg injuries that you get because they're using the same muscles over and over again. And also, to your point that you've raised here a lot, is the pressure, the added pressure of now you're putting all your eggs in that basket, and if you don't succeed, now what? I mean, you've given your whole life to this sport, and it's a ton of pressure for people. It's a ton of pressure for anybody of any age, especially kids. So I think that's well said, and I think a lot of things that you brought to the table, I mean, I've learned a lot from all of it. I mean, I think it's just fascinating. I love sports, but I love the behind the scenes stuff of what's actually really happening in sports and what's going on at the youth level. And I think it's very interesting. And you bring a perspective of someone who played at a very high level and also has an understanding of what's going on inside the mind when it comes to sports. So I think that's great. So I appreciate you bringing those thoughts to us. This podcast is brought to you by CASCM. CASCM helps you, the entrepreneur, engage with your audience like never before. Most entrepreneurs need help developing business, so that's what we do, business development. We offer you the same techniques that have worked for us. We start with content marketing, which includes storytelling, knowledge sharing, thought leadership, and branding through blogs, podcasts, videos, social media, and personal engagement. This leads to opportunities and relationships for you and your business. What else do you get? A content platform asset that will serve you now and in the future as your industry changes. Why do we do this? Because at CASCM, we love helping entrepreneurs build stuff. What we like to do now, though, is go into a little bit more of a rapid fire round or just throw some questions at you. Whatever first comes to mind, hit us with that, and then we'll say our goodbyes after that. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your favorite city to visit?
I would say it's Santorini, Greece, the island of Santorini. I went there this summer, and it was unbelievable. I've been lucky enough to travel a bit, but I thought Santorini was just amazing and would go back there any time I possibly could.
Oh, we love traveling, so we're going to have to definitely check that out. So what is your favorite thing to do, possibly on the plane ride over to Greece? What is your favorite thing to do to kill time?
Well, I think that this may sound cliche, but my favorite thing to do is hang out with my family, with my wife and my daughter. That's that's when I'm the happiest, is when I'm with them. And then if I can add a few friends into the mix, then that is where I'm really happy. I think I'm a pretty social guy. And so, generally it's easier for me to be social than it is to be kind of tucked away and shut down a little bit. But I do I like to watch shows and movies, and I like to read quite a bit. I like to kind of stay up on what's going on in the field, and also with some fun things that don't necessarily help me at all, but are just kind of fun and pass the time.
Absolutely. So if you weren't working in counseling or soccer, what career do you think you would be in? And I'll caveat this with saying, you just mentioned your daughter. My daughter, who once in a while will listen to my podcast, she would say, that's the question, Dad, that you should ask, because I think it's very interesting that there's people are in these businesses, but there's so many other things going out in the world. So it'd be fun to find out what would actually that person be doing if they weren't doing what they're doing now.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've done several things. I played soccer after college. I've been in the recruiting industry, both as an employee and as an owner. And then now I've been in the mental health field. And I think that if I could do anything else, I would probably be a college soccer coach. I think that the strategy, and I would love the recruiting. I would love to go out and get to know these kids and, find the ones that would fit best with my program. And so although I have some of that with coaching now, I think that if I was going to pick a full career, I've got a couple buddies who are college coaches, and what they do seems pretty cool. Although I'm very happy I do what I do. I wouldn't pick that over this, but secondary, I would.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're not asking you to leave your job or anything along those lines, but it's always interesting to check that out. No, I could see that would be a lot of fun. So just in your day-to-day, you're using social media, I'm sure. If you had to pick one today, because this changes, it could have changed from before and it's going to change it again in the future, but as of today, what is your favorite social media app?
I think, well, if this counts, but the thing that I use the most and I probably enjoy the most is LinkedIn. And I think that kind of has a combination of social and business to it. And, I kind of get to know the people a little bit out there that I'm interacting with. And it seems like a really good way to kind of connect with people. And then, I use it a little further. I don't just, post on there. I really try to get to connect with the people and see if I can get to know them a little bit better. And it seems to be an easy platform to do that.
No, absolutely. And it does count. I mean, it's one of the biggest platforms going right now. I'd say it's one of the hottest platforms going. It's being used better than a lot of the other ones out there. So I would agree that LinkedIn's a great tool, especially for what you're doing in your business. I would absolutely say that LinkedIn would be a go-to for you. So it's good to hear that you are using that. So you mentioned reading before. If you had to choose between actually holding a paperback or hardcover book versus holding a Kindle or using your phone as your Kindle app, what would you choose?
Well, this is another thing people tease me about, but I would absolutely hold a hard copy. I still read at least one paper front to back every day, a paper, not on a computer, the actual paper. And it's something that I really enjoy, and I like the aspect of kind of holding it. And I realize that it's not the best thing for the environment, and so I try to switch over and not do that as much as possible. But I think overall that's what I would pick if I had to pick the two without thinking about the consequences of making that choice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So all right, so the next thing as far as reading or learning or kind of taking in some maybe entertainment, you had to choose between reading a blog or listening to a podcast.
I would definitely pick a podcast. I think that, for me, and maybe this comes from the business I'm in, but, I really want to get a feel for the person. And I think that when you're reading something, you can go back and change it and kind of say exactly what you want to say. And I think in a podcast, you really get to hear what the person's all about. And so I feel like I would get to know somebody better and understand what their points are based on, inflection and the way that they say things. I think that that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you do travel, and if you were a college coach, you'd have to do a lot even more traveling. But if you had to choose between driving 4 hours to your destination or taking a 30-minute plane ride, what would you choose?
Again, I think I'm in the not in the norm here, but I would take the 4-hour drive. I'm somebody who my mind is kind of constantly going and seems very busy a lot. And, with the phone and business and coaching and all that kind of stuff, like a 4-hour drive to me seems like a little break and just allows my mind to just go and think and come up with ideas and thoughts. I can just sit there and kind of just be free for a little bit, and that kind of settles me a bit.
Yeah, no, I can get that, and maybe even listen to this podcast on your next 4-hour drive that you have, although it won't take that long. All right, so the ultimate question, the big one, if you could only have one sports team to root for as a fan, what team would that be?
Yeah, that is a tough one. So I would say University of Michigan and football or basketball. That would be where I would go first. I will say that I also really love Wisconsin soccer and am a big fan of the U.S. soccer teams, both men's and women's. So I know you asked for one. The one, if I had to pick one of them, it would be University of Michigan football or basketball. There's really nothing I like more than a football Saturday in Ann Arbor, or we're watching on TV. That's I know you as an Ohio State fan don't like to hear that, but it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, that's where the podcast, we're gonna just clean this one out. Maybe this will never air because we just can't do it. No, it's funny. I've met a lot of Michigan people over the last few years, and really enjoyed my time and had conversations that we've had with them. It's easier when our team's winning games, but you know what? It all comes around, and it is. I agree with you. College football is a lot of fun. College sports is a lot of fun, and you have a lot to watch because you have the Wisconsin side of things. I'm sure you've got your friends that will be like, wait a second, did he just say Michigan football and Michigan basketball and Wisconsin soccer? Because Michigan and Wisconsin don't have a lot of love for each other either. So
that's true. Yeah, it's definitely a point of contention with my buddies. And I mentioned, I don't really get any love from either side because my Wisconsin buddies are telling me look, you should be a Wisconsin fan. And then my Michigan buddies are like, well, you went to Wisconsin, so I don't know what you're talking about.
That's
Why,
right.
You didn't even go here.
Yeah,
so it's kind of hard for me to settle in.
It's amazing after all that time you still have friends because this is serious stuff. This is important. I remember when Urban Meyer was hired by Ohio State and we were watching it and my dad's watching and people are talking in the background like, no, this is really important stuff. You don't understand. And that's what we always talk about. We love talking about how sports are very important and they matter in many ways because they don't matter, but there's so many lessons that we can learn from it, and you shared a lot with us today, and I really do appreciate it. Like I said before, I did learn a lot and kind of continue these conversations. Love to talk to you more, around the things that you have interest in, including sports and sports psychology and just everything else. And we really do appreciate you spending the time with us and sharing a lot of your insight with us. And I think everyone is better off for, hopefully, if they've come this far and listening to this. So, Derek, we really appreciate you spending time with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun. It's always nice to talk about things that you care about and that you love. And, I think that the mental health aspect of society is something we need to get better at and we need to work hard at to help people with. So I always enjoy trying to talk about that a little bit and spread any information we can about that so people can get help.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you.
Derek, it was absolutely awesome having you on this podcast. From the experience you bring in the world of soccer to your ways you help others, we are all better off for taking some time to learn from you. The perspectives from Derek on mental health and is constantly providing an uplifting spirit in his business are now perspectives you as a business owner and entrepreneur can use for yourself. And for that, Derek, thank you. And for any entrepreneur with questions on all things soccer and counseling, feel free to reach out to Derek. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can contact me on Twitter at Eric_Kaz or with the same name on Instagram, or you can find us at KazSource.com with links to us on the different social networks. Thank you for listening to our KazSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Until next time, we're out of here. This podcast exists in large part because of KazCM, the content marketing business inside KazSource Inc. KazCM is excited to bring the content marketing services used at KazSource to you. Learn more by visiting KazCM.com. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It's a big deal to us. We hope you found value in it, and if you did, we would be incredibly grateful if you gave us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and feel free to share it with anyone you know. More than anything, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it.